What are the real new changes in the iPhone 15 series lineup? What is really happening? And also why the S23 Ultra is probably still the better overall package, even compared with the latest iPhone 15 Pro Max. So, if you want to understand a bit more, please watch the full video, and if you're here for the first time, you might want to sub for things like this. The first big news from the Apple iPhone 15 series event is the fact that they are now equalizing some of the features, which means that on the cheaper iPhones, the iPhone 15, the iPhone 15 Plus, you still are gonna get like this year's chip, which is actually last year's chip, the A16, right? And the new one will get the A17, this time with a Pro, but everybody will get the Dynamic Island. And this is actually a huge change, because right now Dynamic Island, this kind of like software supported gimmick, was only available for the Pro models. Now what this means is if you're buying a cheaper phone like the iPhone 15, of course it's not so cheap, but anyway, 15 and 15 Plus will have Dynamic Island, which means that you probably have some of the functionalities that goes also with the iPhone 15 Pro series. For example, using some timers, you can minimize them and stuff like that. So I have this on my iPhone 14 Pro and it's useful. Another big change that is coming is of course the adoption of the USB-C, and I have here really mixed feelings. I'm going to explain why. USB 3.0 controller is only incorporated in the Pro models, which means that if you have an iPhone 15 Pro or Pro Max, you can get up to 10 gigabits per second. But if you're buying the cheaper lines like iPhone 15 and 15 Plus, eventually you're stuck with USB 2, which I believe is really a missed opportunity, and it's totally crazy for Apple to adopt the USB-C in that way. Remember, we had this also on the Xiaomi phones some years ago. They were putting like the premium phones, and then boom, on the top of your phone you'll still have a USB 2 connection. That's really annoying, and I'm really wondering why Apple decided to do it like that. This should not be really a Pro functionality. Another missed opportunity is the 120 Hz adoption. This is still limited being a Pro feature. I don't think it should be a Pro feature. A lot of the phones, even in the mid-series, like the Redmi phones, right, and the Realme phones, even they have 120 Hz, so this is kind of already an industry standard, and that's a missed opportunity for everybody going there and buying iPhone 15 Plus. But the biggest problem with the iPhone 15 lineup is it doesn't really innovate that much. Of course, there are some new camera tricks and tricks, like in the Pro Max they have the Tetra Prism. They advertise 10x optical zoom range, but in reality we only have a 5x optical, right? And you can go from 0.5 to 5x, so they say that's kind of like a 10x optical zoom range, but I do believe it's more like hybrid zoom. We have to be very clear on what the zoom is. We have basically three options. You can have an optical zoom, like purely optical, and you have a digital zoom, right, which is purely digital. A combination of those two is called a hybrid zoom, using optical and also digital. I am just thinking that Apple should be a bit more precise when they talk about this. Anyway, we still have to see how good the iPhone 15 Pro Max is, but overall the whole feeling about the iPhone 15 series is it's just an intermediate product until they release the so-called Ultra iPhone, where we really hope to see new innovations. I'm not saying they didn't innovate right now, so they changed the chassis with the titanium, which is a bit lighter. Now the iPhone is a bit lighter. This is actually quite nice, but it just feels as a very small iterative update over the other iPhones. Like take the iPhone 13 Pro, the iPhone 14 Pro, and now the iPhone 15 Pro and the 15 Pro Max. There are some nice things actually happening for the first time in Apple's history. The ability to record video on an external storage, and I believe that's huge, because in general iOS and iPhones are, you know, a bit more closed, so the ecosystem is not so open to the general public and audience like Android. So they're definitely making these steps. There is also another thing where I'm a bit confused. They replaced the iconic alert button with a programmable action button, and we have had this since so many years. In a lot of the cases, people even don't use those buttons. So I'm not sure if this was a good move, because the alert slider was actually very convenient. It was really part of the original iPhone trademark, right? So right now, I guess the iPhone 15 is just losing a bit on the personality. There are some exciting things like Pro class GPUs, but we still have to see how they implemented them. They say they have hardware ray tracing acceleration, but remember, Samsung did that with the S22 Ultra running on Exynos 2200 with the Eclipse 920 using AMD RDNA version 2, but sadly Samsung was not really able to fully adopt that. Developers didn't really embrace that. Well, we didn't really see a lot of games, so technically Samsung did that first. Of course, the implementation is very, very important. Now let me explain why I do believe that the S23 Ultra is still the better phone. Don't get me wrong, the iPhone 15 Pro Max is still going to be a great package, but what you're getting in the S23 Ultra is really a more versatile device. not to mention the S Pen, which honestly I don't use that much, but there have been some cases I've been editing my videos on the go, so S Pen can be quite handy. You can also use this to remotely control your phone, so this is technically another device stuck in your phone, bringing more functionality, not to mention One UI that really has so many options right now, and it's very soon to adapt the Android 14 via the One UI 6. There are some other things happening for the first time in the Apple world, and this is really remastering a picture, like a normal picture of a person and a dog, and add a portrait effect. But we have been doing this since quite a while in Android, so technically this is not really a novelty. But why is the Galaxy S23 Ultra still the better package? Besides, of course, just having more hardware features such as the S Pen that lets you control your phone remotely, lets you draw on the screen and stuff like that, has a very nice camera system, guys, but there are things that we can do, and we can do them since quite a while. You can also use this device as a video out monitor, just pure signal getting directly out of the USB-C. We do also have Samsung DeX that lets your phone become almost like a PC, so PC grade experience using with a keyboard, with a mouse. But don't forget, guys, this year the S23 Ultra also comes with a Snapdragon chip, which means that eventually you can also choose different camera versions. You can use Google Camera, there are tons of mods, different configs, so the phone is very versatile. You can pretty much do whatever you want with this phone, and these things will really start to come in the iPhone series. But you see how they do it, like step by step, not so fast. They take this approach a bit slower. So overall package, functionalities, build quality, camera quality, hardware and software features, the S23 Ultra is still going to be a bit better than the iPhone 15 Pro Max. Don't get me wrong, it's going to be a great device, a great battle, but the S23 Ultra is now last generation, and we need to compare the iPhone 15 Pro Max with the S24 Ultra. And if Samsung can keep up with Snapdragon and the One UI 6 experience is great, which I believe it will be, it's going to be very tough for the iPhone 15 Pro. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Stay safe, VST over, and bye.